Alright, I'm going to show the process for setting up your rig and putting your animations inside of Unity from Motion Builder to Maya to Unity. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rig that I know works in both Motion Builder and Unity. So I've tested out the guy rig and he seems to work just fine in both. So I'm going to bring him into Maya. And this is just the default guy rig in T-pose, and I need to save this out for Unity because we need the T-pose to create what is called an avatar in Unity, and this will allow Unity to understand the bones in the character in order to apply animation onto it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this guy in Maya, go to File, Game Exporter. Sorry, things are popping up on the other screen. And pretty much the default settings here are going to work just fine inside of Unity for what we're doing. I'm just going to expand out the settings and make sure that my FBX version is set to anyone besides the latest 2016 or 2016-2017 versions, because those don't work inside of most versions of Unity. So I'm going to roll back to 2014-2015 as this works fine. I've heard that the most stable ones are 2011 and 2012 if you're having any issues. So I'm going to go to 2014-2015. I'm going to set a path, and I'm just going to go into the desktop and grab this 298 folder, and I'm going to put in there. And I'm just going to name this rig underscore T-pose and export. Now that part's easy. So now we have to get animations onto this rig to then bring back into Maya to then bring to Unity. And the only reason we have to use Maya at this point is that FBX version issue. Motion Builder doesn't give you an option to export to any other version of FBX besides that 2016-2017 version. So now instead of Motion Builder, I'm going to bring in the guy rig. This is going to be the one from Blackboard or the resource drive, not the one that we just exported outside of Maya. So I'll just bring that in, hit open, and then say I had recorded some mocap data. Right now I'm just going to use something from the previs, and I'll show you how to combine that onto your rig. So basically we have the mocap data, we need to get it on the rig, so I'm going to I'll just take the bat swing here, drag it on, FBX merge all takes. Make sure it plays, seems to be working, and then I will make sure that I have the guy character selected and the character controls, set it to character, and then I will bake this to the skeleton. And now I am going to do this. So I'm going to make sure that my Maya scene is set to a new scene. And then I am going to send this to Maya, and I'm going to add it to the current scene. The only reason I'm doing this is because send as new scene can be a little bit buggy or take a really long time. So I'm just going to do add to current scene in a new scene. Send the whole scene. Alright, and I've got both in here. I don't want both. So I am going to open up the outliner. Get rid of everything but the guy rig. Make sure it still plays. Alright, looks good. And then all I'm going to do is first I'm going to figure out how many frames this animation is. So it looks like it's about, what's that, 81? 82? So it's about 82 frames. So I'm going to go into Game Exporter, having known how many frames that is. And this time, instead of the export, instead of going to the default, which is model, I'm going to click this tab up here called Animation Clips. I'm going to add a new animation clip. And this will be called Bat Swing. It starts at 0, ends at 82. play that to sort of preview it here. And you can also change the playback range on here by just pressing that button instead of just playing it. Then I'm going to make sure that my FBX version is set to that 1415 again. The settings may be closed, so you might have to expand it there. The path I'm going to set to be the same path. And then this one I'm just going to name, I named it guy, right? No, I named it rig. So rig, and then underscore. What this is going to do is this is the name that we're going to associate with the character, and this is the name that it's going to be giving to the individual animations. So if you had gone into something like story mode and baked all of that onto the skeleton and brought it into Maya, if you had a series of animations, what you can do is you can actually break them up here, and you would just hit that button, and then you would just say walk, and this animation would be on frame, say 83 to 84. Sure, it's a short walk, but I only have one set, so I'm just going to delete that. And what that would do is it actually would split it up into multiple FBX files, and I'll show you why that's useful in a second. So I'm going to export this. It works just fine. Now I have a folder in here. It's got rig Batswing and rig T-pose. So now I'm going to open up Unity. So I have the start Unity on here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. This project I'm going to call 298 demo. I'm going to set this to desktop 298, new folder, Unity. This is basically where your Unity project is going to be set up, and this is what your project is going to be called. So I will create a project, but before I do, there's a little issue that exists inside of the labs, and probably with that specific version of Unity, where if you have your project set to 3D like I do, it might come in as a 2D project. So the best way I found to avoid that is to sort of click on this 2D button and then click back on the 3D button. Don't know why it's an issue. It just is. In the labs, also note that we will be using the latest version of Unity available, which I think at the time is 5.3.4. So I'm going to create this project. It's going to load up and bring me a blank Unity project. And see, this is telling me that there's a newer version of Unity, and I'm going to close that. So when you get into Unity for the first time, you will probably see something much different. And I'm going to change my layout to the default one as to not confuse you. So this is what you probably see. To explain Unity, the hierarchy over here sort of acts like your scene outliner in Maya. The scene is sort of like your 3D space in Maya. You navigate it just the same, right? And the inspector would be sort of like the channel box or attribute editor. The other windows of importance is this tab up here called Game. This is what is actually going to play when you play the game. So I hit play right now. It just takes me to that camera. But I can't actually move around in this view. This view is always determined by this camera here or whatever camera your game scene has. So don't worry about it too much right now. And the other section is this project area. And this is sort of like getting access to that project folder that we just set up. And this is where we're going to dump all of our assets and all of our textures. And the reason why we need this is because in a game, not every character or not every asset is in the same scene at the same time. So this is just basically a file browser to help game developers. So to bring in the assets that we need, I am going to grab the rig T-pose that I have. Just know that I'm clicking this on the off window, and I'm going to click it and drag it over to this assets folder down here and let go. This will import that asset right there. Now, there may be an issue where if you go to click and drag into the assets folder, it doesn't let you do it. I don't know why, but it is kind of a big issue inside of Unity because clicking and dragging into the assets folder is the easiest way to import multiple assets at once. There is an alternative method, but it only allows you to import one asset at a time. And I'll do that for the actual animation. So you just right click inside of this assets area, or you can click on this assets folder button up here. So I'm going to right click, go to import new asset, and I'm going to go back to that 298 folder and click on bat swing. So now I have both of my files right here, and you can see a little preview icon in the bottom right corner. The first thing I need to do before I do anything else is set up the original character and create that avatar that I talked about earlier. So I'm going to click on this, and like I said before, it brings up like an attribute editor over here, which right now, since we're in the assets folder, it's giving me the import settings. These are the settings that Unity has to go through to know what to bring in. So this is where I would uncheck things like Maya materials and stuff like that if I didn't want to bring those in when I brought this. But right now we're just worried about animation. So I'm going to go over to the rig button. To set up a rig inside of Unity, we need to use what is called the mechanism system. So I'm going to change this animation type from generic to humanoid because we're making a human, right? Now it says avatar definition, create from this model. That's what we want. We need to create an avatar. So I'm going to hit apply because I've changed that to humanoid, and then I'm going to hit configure. And now it's going to bring up a whole new scene of our character outlining our bones. It's going to show all of the bones that it's picking up in green, and any extra bones that it's not dealing with in this gray right here. And it's not too big of a deal that it's not picking up those, but it could be. And really the big issues that you're going to look for is bones that are showing up in red, which I'll show you a little bit later. So what we need to scan through is right in here. This may look familiar since you guys have been using Motion Builder so much. It's kind of like a human IK system, but this is Unity's mechanism system. This is how it knows how to transfer one animation between multiple rigs as long as they're set up with an avatar. So the way that we do this is we have a bunch of checklists right here. So the hips, you make sure that they're set to the hips bone, the right one. Make sure the spine and the chest are set to the right bones there. And if you notice, we don't have any shoulder bones being connected. And this is just, this is Unity's auto settings. But if you notice, the shoulder bones are optional. So we could go in and find that shoulder bone, or we can leave this alone. The main things that we're going to look for is these solid lines. So I'm going to look through and see everything looks pretty much fine. And you can click right here to go into the hands or the head. So I'm going to go into the hand, go into the other hand. Head looks fine. So I'm going to go back to the body, and then I'm going to show you how to add a bone or replace one if you needed to. So say a bone, like say this arm bone right here, this upper arm, say it was coming in as this spine bone for some reason, and I needed to replace it. Or say this shoulder bone was coming in wrong. So what we're going to do is you're going to find that shoulder, and you're going to click on this little circle right next to it, and it's going to bring up a search for your scene. And this is why it threw the rig in your scene, because now you can find all of the bones. So if you want to find a shoulder, I can actually start typing, and it will search through that scene for any shoulders. We're looking for the left shoulder, so I can just click on left shoulder. But that is actually giving an error now, and you can see that through the red. And this is because, if you notice from the naming, I clicked on one of the controls. So when I brought the rig over from Maya, it actually brought over the control rig as well, which isn't too big of an issue, but it's usually not something you want to bring in because of things like this. So I have an issue with the shoulder now. It's because I am not selecting a bone. So I'm going to go and type shoulder again, and now I'm going to look for the one that's called skeleton. So you know that it's part of the skeleton and the left shoulder, and it fixes everything right out. I'm going to do that again for the right arm, just so that we have consistency. Right shoulder. And so now you know how that could have been an error, and I think I can probably get this to make an error too, if I were to change this to foot. Now you can see what errors can look like in here. And it actually broke so hard that it froze my scene for a little second. So Unity does not like it when your hierarchy is set up wrong. So all I did was change the upper arm to the foot. It's totally not what you want for the upper arm. I'm going to change that back. Okay, now that I'm done, I will hit apply, and then done, and leave the area. So now we have created an avatar. And actually, you can go in and expand what's all in this file, and you can find over here is the avatar. And if you needed to configure it again, you can access it from here as well. So I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to click on the rig bat swing. So now in this rig, we have an animation type, humanoid, and instead of creating the avatar from this model, we've already created one correctly from the T-pose. So I'm going to go copy from other avatar. And I'm going to find the T-pose one. And I'm going to apply. Now, this avatar definition has been applied to this guy. And the reason why we want to do that is because to create an avatar correctly, you need your model in T-pose. Otherwise, Unity is going to hate you. It's going to throw a bunch of errors, which I can show right here. I'm going to create from model, configure. Oh, it's actually going to figure out the T-pose on this. But a lot of rigs, it can't. And you can actually try and enforce it. It might be figuring it out because I had that previously on. But just know that it wants your rig to be in the T-pose. So I'm just going to copy this again, update, hit apply. And now, the big thing, the reason why we're here, is animations. So since this is just a T-pose, we don't have to worry about this animations tab. But on the bat swing guy, go to animations, and usually this will be here. I don't know why it wasn't. This is a little preview window where you can preview your animations. If yours isn't showing up like mine was, just grab the bat swing guy and pull him over here. So this will preview your animations, and this is also where you will set up any fixes. So if you accidentally set the wrong frames, you can just create a new clip. You can change looping, a bunch of other stuff. And if you want this to be a bigger preview window, you can just come in and right click right here, and it pops it out, and then you just expand it like a normal window, and then you hit play.